Say we've got to unite. Why can't we unite? Lord, I wanna know now. Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, can't we unite? Lord, why can't we unite? Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, can't we unite? Lord, united we stand, so divided we fall. We must unite, topple these walls. Lord, 400 years, divided too long. We must unite if we must be strong. Whoa, 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 whoa. Every time I look around, I see my people suffer, Lord. Every time I look around, I seem to feel the pain. Why can't we unite? Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, can't we unite? Lord, why can't we unite? Black and white. Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, can't we unite? Lord, we've got to unite. We've got to unite. Come on, people, say we've got to unite. Get yourself together, say we've got to unite. So why can't we unite? Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, can't we unite? Come together. Why can't we unite? Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, can't we unite? Lord, harder than the root, we'll open a gap. Forcing on fighting, can only keep us apart. Lord, 400 years, yes, we've fighted too long. All right, let me say a special greetings, a special welcome to all of you are locked into that space at this time. That is the Saturday Night Live sport with yours truly, Loftus Durant, aka Lofty Durant. This evening, it's the 6th evening of December. Yes, you heard me right, 2024, indeed. And it is the very first program for another brand new year, 2024. And all of you already here locked in, thank you for being in that space at this time. This evening, we're going to have a very, very interesting conversation for the opening up of our brand new year, 2024. This evening, no, I'm not alone. I'm with a very special invited guest here this evening in the name of Brother Mr. Simeon Joseph. He's going to talk to us this evening on an all-important subject matter, whereby, you know, every time a brand new year comes around, you know, we normally make this resolution, we call them. We normally have some fear. Some persons live in a sort of despair situation. But this evening, Brother Joseph, a motivator, an inspirational speaker, I call him. Whenever I listen to this, brother, I always get a chill. And so this evening, I know you too, you guys will get that chill as well out there. So what I ask at this time, make yourself feel very, very comfortable. Mr. Joseph is here with us, and we're about to have a very interesting conversation about just how we need to start off this brand new 2024 in terms of that outlook that we want to have on our lives in Dominica, in the region, and yes, even further afield. So as I said, it is the 6th of December, 2024. It is just about 10 minutes past the good old hour of 6 o'clock. We will be there for about an hour 15 minutes thereabout, talking with Brother Joseph. And yes, your calls are welcome and your contributions indeed. Without further ado, let me move across and say a special greetings to Brother Simeon Joseph. Good evening to you, sir. How is it?
Good evening, Lofty. Good evening to your listeners. Good evening to Dominicans. I can add people of goodwill. Okay, I mean goodwill. I mean those who want to anticipate positivity in their lives and with each other, and people who are looking forward to better things in life, hoping for better things in life, trying to leave behind perhaps situations and circumstances that, a word I want to use this, debilitates them and their progress and their happiness and their contentment and their peace. So I want to wish everybody good evening, Dominicans, your usual listeners. It's a pleasure being here with you again, Lofty. Um, and thanks for your continued steadfastness and resoluteness in holding the fort, so to speak. Um, in the struggle and in life, there can be many people who give up, people who um, fall on the wayside, people who become discouraged because of the challenges and the obstacles and the roadblocks that they go through. However, tenacity is what is important. People of hope are tenacious people. They hold on, they don't let go. So I want to congratulate you for being a very tenacious man, someone who holds on and never let go in spite of the odds, you know? And so thank you for what you do for Dominica, for Dominicans, and for all of us.
Yes, indeed. And Simeon, I thank you. I received those accolades in the spirit in which that you spoke them. And so thank you very much. Coming from a man like you, I appreciate that very much. But I must reciprocate that, Simeon, and say, you know, you're a man, my brother. Whenever I hear your voice on beaten radio, whatever it is, whatever medium, I normally take time off to listen because I always learn something from you. And so, Simeon, I just want to say thank you as well for your steadfastness. You're always on point in terms of your delivery. You are no nonsense guy. You're no nonsense man. You say it as it is. And if we had, you know, some more men and women like you, then, you know, Dominica may not be in the predicament in which it is today. And so for that and more, brother, I want to say thank you very much and continue to do what you do.
Thank you. I mean, just to continue the conversation, there's something in life called a Greek word called in the washka. Okay, that is your sense of life. It's Greek washka, and it means based on what you're saying, it's a sense of life. All of us must know what is our in life. Why are we on this earth? And I can tell you, I when I speak, I always say, tell everybody, I don't just want to speak. I want to inform people, but more than inform people, I think people need to be educated about things in life, and especially the things upon which um, we can share our learned knowledge or our existential reality, as well as our empirical reality. You know, life is made up of those two pillars of knowledge, the existential reality and the empirical reality. I mean, what do these two words mean? The empirical reality meaning our data, the facts that are before us, and the existential reality meaning our lived reality, our experience. So those two things have to come together. I can tell you, Lofty, for me, it has not been easy, but I continue to do it. I can tell you, since I started speaking out, I mean, the level of animosity and opposition, and I have experience and threatening phone calls, threatening texts, attitudes. I mean, just Friday, I was walking in town, and I was walking by a lady, and the woman looked at me so bully. I mean, if I had stand up for 1 second, she would jump on me, you know?
Wow.
I say, well, I know her. She knows me. It's not somebody that I have had any encounter with. I've taken no land, money, possessions of the lady, but the way she looked at me. But we have to go through those things. You see, when you stand on a platform of principle, um, when you are steadfast, none of us are perfect. We all have our imperfections. We all have our human frailties and weaknesses,
Yes.
but we mustn't let those things cover us. Think that because we have our frailties and our weaknesses, we cannot take a position in life. That we have to be fearful or we have to wonder, what are people going to think when we speak? We are put on this earth for a purpose. What is our purpose? Only one person in this on this, whoever walked this earth was perfect. Okay? And that's Jesus Christ. And in spite of his perfection, he was still put to the cross because he decided to stand for truth, justice, righteousness, okay, and what is good. So if we claim to be Christians, we know that it's not going to be smooth sailing. We have to adopt certain principles in life, certain decisions in life, which will irk some people, which will cause some people to get angry at us. And that's the mark of a true disciple. Okay? Because Matthew chapter 5 uh, tells us, blessed are you when people persecute and speak all kinds of calumny against you and fight against you for in my name. And in his name is not only saying he died on the cross and he'll come again. It's to do the very same things that he did: challenge authority, challenge the status quo, expose the wrongs in society, look at the powers that be and demystify the structures and expose them for people who, so that they could open their eyes, make the lame walk, make the blind see, make the deaf hear, heal the leper against all odds. And we have to exude that courage within us ourselves to do likewise.
True, true. And just to back you up on that spiritual note that you're on, in that somewhere in the gospel it says as well, look, he was talking to disciples, I'm sending you out there as sheep among wolves. And so that situation, Simeon, certainly does not denote that it will be a walk in the park, or it was a walk in the park. So yeah.
Well, yes, but as I always tell people, if I'm a sheep, if you send me to the wolves, I'll come back leading the pack.
True. True.
So sometimes we have to go into the wolves and tame the wolves and get the wolves on our side so that they can help us to go into the forest and seek the wild meat that is trying to devour us.
True.
Send me to the wolves, I'll come back leading the pack.
True. Very good. All right, folks. Yes, I know the conversation is already very intriguing, and so it's already 16 minutes past 6 o'clock, and we are here. Simeon, a usual thing that I normally do here each and every Saturday is call out some of the persons by name who are there with me. Now tonight is with us on the live program. But just before I go to that live feed, though, let me touch the Civic Vibes team. I tell you, that is a very formidable team. We have persons like Brother Alvin Thomas on that team, a no-nonsense brother, straight shooter, say it as it is guy. We also have Paula Celestine on that team, and the others who are behind, the mission for that Civic Vibes engagement each and every Sunday. Thank you very much, guys, for your steadfastness in that regard. And we did well as a team. And so 2024 promises to be yet another very interesting year ahead for us. So let's continue in that vein. So the Civic Vibes team, let's take a bow at this time, people. Yes, we also have persons on the live. Mali Austri, you're there. Well, Mali, to me, by now, Mali, you are, if not number one on that list each and every Saturday. Then you are right up there in that pack. So Mali Austri normally call a team of persons by name whenever she comes on. And she calls Judy Berry, Celia Godden, John Alfred, John Joseph, Faith Sunshine, Margel Durant, Owen Prosper. And whenever Mali calls, then these people, they have no choice but to listen and come across. So all those of you are there, thank you very much. Dave Bertrand, you're there. Dorian Charles, good evening to you. Owen Prosper. Also have Cecilia, Bedminister Claudette Durant, Brother Ashby, Scotland. John Alfred, Glenda Lavi Duberton, you're also there. Rosa Robinson, Jane Bernard, Brother Macpherson Barber in Antigua. So the Antigua Passy and Barbuda, good evening to you. Juanita Prince, Cecilia Bedminister, I think I called that name already. Cecilia says, hello from Maryland, where it's rainy and cold. Well, for sure, Cecilia, we're going to send some warmth your way, all right? So just stay tuned to the program that you got. Rosa Robinson says, good evening, Lofty. I'm locked in. Juanita Prince is locked in from New York. Glenda Lavi Duberton says, yay, I love listening to Simeon. So you're indeed for treat tonight, Glenda. Stephanie John Baptist says, good evening. Youthily Vidal, Thelma Sylvester, Brother Dory Drago. Dory, you as well, you're right up there in terms of the attendance each and every time. Joan Talbot, Theodore Anthony, good evening. Justina James, another usual suspect, always there. Good evening to your sons as well and daughters. Yes, good evening as well. Brother Thaddeus James, a very solid brother, Kofi and the rest. Victorious as God's Plan, that is a Facebook profile name here. Magdalene Augustine, Trisha Henderson. Trisha Henderson says, good night, Lofty. Good night to you as well. Jasid Leroy James, another formidable brother doing his thing on social media. Good evening to your brother James. Paula Lupin, you're also there. We also have Mrs. Watson Duveny. Good evening. Who else we have here? Medina Sandhouse. Medina, you as well, and your lovely daughter, that is Dr. Simone. Yes, Simone Matthew. Good evening to you guys. Simone and I think we spoke last evening, yesterday into today. Very, very kind sister indeed. Petra Carbon George, my sister from the Cottage constituency. Good evening to you, but doing very good thing for herself and country out there in the USVI, in the agricultural sector. And so Petra, continue what you do for your country and citizens alike. Magdalene Augustine, Annette Monjuri, Janice Felix, Trisha Henderson, I think I called you already, Griffo Daniel, Indigenous Bushman, that brother is another, I call him the specialist in the herbalist business. Always add some education to that, so keep on keeping on, my brother. Marlene Schillingford, good evening to you. Truns, you're also there. Trun says positiveness. So yes, that is what we do here on the Saturday Night Live program. Anne Laville, Lucinda McDowell Thole, you're also there. Good evening. We also have Brother Nigel Corriott, Eliza Louise Gomes, Claudia Carlton, Celia King, that's my sister in the Jimmy area, Everlasting Peter, who else? Eliza, I call you already. Kendra Alexis. Kendra have a nickname I normally call her, but that is not for live, yeah, Kendra, so we'll keep that between us. But Kendra, good evening to you. Mary Jo, you're also there. Brittil, Birmingham, Anne Laville, Ivinia, Joseph, you're also there. She says, present teachers, happy new year to all. Indira Telemark, good evening to you as well. Brother Jaira Hector, another positive brother indeed. Rudolph Marie, this brother is always on point as well. Rudolph Marie. Curtis Abraham, locked in from Montreal. We also have, who else we have here? June Charles, Louis Francis, Selma, Louis Kerry, Lockhart Savage. Good evening to you. Carol Olivachi Bruni, another serious patriot of Dominica. Marigold Popo, Rani Felix, my brother Rani Felix. Rani saying he and Rosie. That is Rosie. Good evening to you. That is the lady that have been causing some waves in Dominica for some time. Rosie, good evening to you and Rani. Francisca Deluge, you're there. Dorothy Regis, you're also there as well. Nalda Brumans, you're tuning in now. And the list goes on and on and on. Simeon,
yeah.
I know. We have to get the conversation going, all right?
I'm sitting listening to the names here.
I know. But all of you who are there, we thank you and we appreciate your company each and every time. Yes, folks, as I said, for those of you who may not have been there and have missed it, Simeon Joseph is my guest for tonight, is the Civic Vibes team guest for tonight. And so we'll be having that conversation of Simeon. Folks, it is always that time of year, every, time a new year comes around. We have certain fears, some of us. We have certain expectations, some of us. There may be certain things that we may not want to repeat as it pertains to that new year that occurred in the previous year. Mm-hmm. And so there are different challenges, there are different situations, there are different emotional states that people go through, psychological state that people go through. And, it is just trying our best here to set the pace right as it pertains to just giving you or allowing you that platform to ease yourself, as it will. Take that year day by day, week by week, month by month, and just go through that year. There are a lot of anxiety out there. A lot of persons are anxious out there. And so we chose to bring back Simeon this year. I think he did it for us last year to help us understand who we are as an individual, as a member of community, as a member of your family, as a member of a country. And so this evening is no different of a program. Simeon is here and he's going to take us down that path in terms of just helping us pace ourselves for what we will be going through as citizens of the Commonwealth of Dominica. Simeon, again, thank you very much, my brother. The floor is yours, as it were.
Well, so first of all, we'll love to again good night, and you call a number of people whom I would like to acknowledge myself and to wish them a happy new year. We have begun this new year, and of course, every time a new year begins, it creates a situation of unknown. I like to say I like to encourage people to understand that any situation of unknown is not something to be afraid of. It's really a state of flux. We go through those different situations in our life, a state of flux whereby we are at a pivotal situation in our lives where we don't know what the incumbent tomorrow is going to bring. And so we need not always be skeptical or doubtful about the unknown, because flux is one of the healthy things about being in a situation of flux, is that it gives you a certain level of possibilities to be creative, to be able to look at where you are, what I would refer to as your situation in time, and ask yourself what is the best thing I can do with my situation in time? What is the best thing I can do where I am now, who I am now, in the environment that I am now, what I'm going through at this present moment, how I am engaged, with whom I engage, where I'm engaged at this present moment. And it takes a certain level of positivity, takes a certain level of determination. It takes a very high level of internal drive and formidable spirit to say, okay, I need not cower under the unknown, but because of who I am, because of the divine inert resources that we have all been bestowed with by God, and the blessings that we have, if we look for them, we will be able to face whatever challenges, whatever situations we're going through, whatever obscurities that we may face, whatever darkness that is before us, and take the resoluteness that we have inside of us and be creative. Our creativity in each person comes at different levels. Some people are able to create magnificent things out of the flux that they are in. Others might just be able to create small element of hope in their lives. And so that's what we have to do. And I recognize that a lot of Dominicans are going through a certain level of uncertainty, doubt, lack of trust, a lot of fear. One of the things I find in Dominica is people are basically living under a cloud of fear, feeling threatened, feeling insecure, fearful of tomorrow, fearful of each other, fearful of many situations in their life. I realize that it's unfortunate that last year we had the suicide of one young man, and a very prominent businessman in Dominica. And we have to ask ourselves, what in life would cause people to reach that point of lack of hope that they would just give up, you know? And obviously we're not here to judge, but this can be lessons for us as to how we face our challenges in life. What do we do when we have challenges in life, when we have the obscurities and the challenges and the difficulties that confront us on a daily basis? And so since you asked me to focus on the word fear, but let me first define fear. Fear can be seen as an unpleasant emotion, that is caused by either threat, danger, or pain or harm. So when people feel threatened, for whatever situation it is, either lack of wealth, either by means of not having employment, either by means of other people who are who seem to be in their way. Sometimes people go through threatening situations of health in mind and body, and others, and some people also find themselves maybe in dangerous situations. When we look at Dominica today, we see that sometimes we are treading on dangerous paths. When we look at the number of murders in Dominica, right now there's a phenomenon in Dominica which I just don't know, where we have what do you call it, hit and runs. Just in the last 2 weeks in December, there were 3 people who were hit and run. One person succumbed. And so the question is, can you even walk safely on the streets at night? Just the other day on Wednesday night, Lofty, I was taking my evening walk, and I was walking up where I live. And somebody stopped and somebody asked me, aren't you afraid? And you're afraid that people will come after you? I asked why. They said, but you're always on the radio talking, and you're in the darkness walking up Federation Drive. I mean, that is the kind of environment that people have to live. Because you speak, you don't have to be afraid that you might be harmed in walking on the street. So threat of danger. Some people also fear, go through periods of fear because of pain that they're going through. We think of the number of people in Dominica who are going through cancer. That is something I just don't know. When are we going in Dominica to do some kind of survey, do some kind of research into why we have such a high percentage of cancer cases across the board in Dominica? And so people are going through pain. People are going through emotional pain. A lot of people have been hurt by others. A lot of people have been attacked unfairly by other people. So there are people who go through physical pain, and there are people who go through emotional pain as well. Sometimes the emotional pain can be much more hard to bear by people because of how some people may feel let down or deceived or betrayed or have their hopes dashed as well. And they go through those kind of pain and also harm. Again, I just like to look at the number of murders we have in Dominica, the shootings, the stabbings, the chopping, the unwarranted harm that people impose on each other. And we look at that and we know that it is those unpleasant emotions that people go through, either through threat of danger, being threatened, or suffering pain, be it psychological or emotional or physical, and harm as well, and really and truly, fear has two dimensions. Fear has two dimensions. There's the spiritual fear and there's a temporal fear. Fear is not all that unhealthy, but it depends on what level of fear you're going through. And as we embark on this new year, people need to ask themselves, what dimension of fear am I going through? Am I going through a period of spiritual fear, or am I going through a period of temporal fear? So if you're going through a period of spiritual fear, that's a very healthy thing. If you're going through a period of temporal fear, that's a very unhealthy thing, because it means therefore your focus and what causes you to be fearful is not going to have a positive outcome in your life. It's not going to have a positive effect in your life, and will also will lead to a certain kind of death. So that is if you're going through temporal fear, because going through temporal fear can lead to spiritual death. It can lead to emotional death. It can lead to intellectual death. It can lead to social death. And so we need to know, as human beings, as people, what type of fear are we going to as we encounter this new year? What are the things that are causing you to feel a certain level of trepidation as you enter the new year? And we need to stop and reflect, each of us, and say the challenges that we may have had in 2023 that may be unresolved at the end of 2023, and we have to face them again in 2024. Where do those fears come from? What is the foundation for those fears, and why are we going through that process of fear? So we have to balance: is it spiritual, or is it temporal? Is that enough by way of introduction, Lofty?
Much more than enough, Simeon. You put a lot of stuff on the plate there. so that we can start to digest on the meat of the conversation we're having here. Simeon, I'm a man, I'm on the ground. I'm on the ground. And when you mentioned the word fear, when you started to elaborate on how persons demonstrate that they are fearful living in Dominica, it is very, very a real thing in Dominica.
Yes, it is. It's very concrete. It's a concrete reality. It's a concrete reality. And unfortunately, most of it is unhealthy fear. But go ahead.
I used to hear people say, Simeon, that, boy, I met this person and, you know, that person is so fearful of speaking to me in public or having other person see me talking to this person. And I was hearing this thing, Simeon, but I wasn't internalizing it that much. I couldn't fathom it in Dominica in the 20th century that some people would be so fearful to even speak to fellow Dominicans in a certain place or space. Okay. But lately, Simeon, I have been on the ground, as I told you, and I have been witnessing that kind of fear. Persons, when you ask them a question, how are you? Then, you know, they want to speak, but you can hear that level of fear in their voices. They would pull you in a much more cozy place and will tell you, Lofty, I am this, I'm suffering from that, I'm going through. But, and Simeon, trust me, that really, really tear me apart. I cannot understand, Simeon, that these are the Dominicans that I knew that were so vociferous of things and would spell out things and would talk to people in crowds and, you know, would be so, you know, upfront with you. So I'm asking, what has bewitched us? Who has bewitched us? What has taken over us, Simeon in Dominica, that level of fear has crept in so subtle, and it's like it is now manifesting itself in so many persons' behaviors.
Yeah, well, you see, what you are describing, the Lofty, is a very ominous situation. And the word ominous is something that is riddled with evil, you know. Fear comes from the devil. So before I respond to you fully, let me elaborate a little on the ground upon which people can lay a foundation so as not to succumb to the ominous spirit of fear, the evil spirit of fear. In our national anthem, one of the things we say is we are people full of godly reverent fear. And it almost seems to be an antithesis now in our society that people don't fear God, but they fear man. That's you can now say that if one is to do a presentation on the prevalence of fear in Dominica, we have an antithesis of what is in our national anthem, a people full of godly, reverent fear. Okay? And yet, we find that the majority of Dominicans are moving away from fear of God and into a trajectory of fear of man. So let me lay a foundation for this a little bit. As I said before, there are two types of fears, the spiritual fear and the temporal fear. Let us look at the spiritual fear. And we have to understand spiritual fear in order to overcome the temporal fear. If you do not grasp and understand spiritual fear, you will not be able to confront the temporal fear. Okay? Because people who don't fear God will fear man. Put it that way, plain and simple. Okay? So let me share something with you. So when we talk about fearing God, it means having respect for him, plain and simple, and obeying him. And I'm amazed to see the number of people today who have less respect for God and obey God less, but they have a lot of respect for human beings and obey human beings more than they would obey. So they would actually lose their soul in fear of man instead of obeying God. And the fear of God means that you have to acknowledge him as your creator and thus to have the right to be your Lord. It means that you act out of reverence to God, that your actions are premised out of your reverence, your obedience, and your respect for God. You know, when we talk about full of godly reverent fear in our national anthem, that's what we mean. The Dominicans, a people, we are a nation, we are a generation that has so much reverence for God that we respect and obey Him alone. We see Him as our creator. Now, Lofty, allow me to be a little theologian for the time being. Now, in the Old Testament, there is a clear connection that is made between fearing God and keeping His commands and serving Him. In Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 12, we read, and now Israel, what does the Lord require of you? But to fear the Lord your God and walk in His ways, to love Him and to serve Him with all your heart, all your mind, and all your soul. That's from the theological perspective. And that is what God asks of us as human beings. He calls us. He says, if we want to follow God, what we need to do is He requires us to fear Him, to walk in His ways, to love Him, to serve Him with all our heart and all our soul. That's in Deuteronomy, etc. Now, in the New Testament, when we look at the New Testament gives us several foundations upon which we need to understand what is this reverent fear that we talk about in Dominica. And I think in 2 Corinthians chapter 7, it speaks of us. Let us cleanse ourselves of the defilement of the body and the spirit and bring holiness to completion in the fear of God. In Luke chapter 23, verse 40, he says, do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence and condemnation? And these were the two men who were on the cross, you know. And in Revelation chapter 14, verse 7, it says, and he said with a loud voice, fear God and give Him glory, because the hour of His judgment has come, and worship Him who had made heaven and earth and the sea and everything that it contains. So when we have to look from a theological perspective, from a biblical perspective about fear of God, we need to know that is what it is. Our fear, the only fear we ought to have as a people on this land of the Lord, full of godly reverent fear, is to serve God alone, that nobody else comes before God. And if we fear God, it's to serve Him. Because being fearful of God inherently calls us to serve Him and serve Him alone. Okay? And so that fear of God speaks about an awe and submission to God. And then it says, there's another verse in scripture, I think, where it says, fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. For you to be smart, you have to fear God. You know? And so this is what we need to look at. You know? No. Fear can be seen spiritually as a natural consequence of sin. But from what you're speaking about, Lofty, there are two acronyms for fear, as you spoke tonight. I think one is FEAR, forget everything and run. Or the other one, FER, face everything and rise. The choice is yours. Choice is ours. So we can look at FEAR from two perspectives, based on what you said tonight and based on our understanding of what fear really is.
Yes.
If you fear man, you will forget everything and run. Okay? If you fear God, you will face everything and rise. And so we have to be in that dilemma. We have to be able to balance in terms of our daily encounters of fear. What do we forget everything and run? And that's what many people who try to instill fear in us would like us to do. They instill fear in us, and because of the level of fear that they instill in us politically, religiously, socially, financially, they want us to give up, forget everything and run. But if you recognize that the fear that you're supposed to have in you is a reverent fear, and you are serving God, you will not allow fear to manipulate you. You will not allow fear to dictate to you whether you are on the side of right or you're on the side of wrong. And if you recognize that in Deuteronomy, you are said to fear God, to love Him, to serve Him, you will face everything and rise. And so that is why in life, when we come to this situation of fear, you have to know, where is the fear coming from? That's why I said at the beginning, is it spiritual or is it temporal? Because you see, I'm Lofty, from an inherent perspective, from a reactionary perspective, there are three types of fear. There's primal fear, there's irrational fear, and there's rational fear. Okay? There's primal fear. We hear of a snake. We see a snake singing, so we're afraid. Some women, if they see a cockroach or a spider, they are afraid. Okay? And there are certain situations where before you put people in a situation, they are fear. There's irrational fear. Political fear is irrational fear. Harassment is an irrational fear. Domination is an irrational fear. Abuse is an irrational fear. Okay? So there are certain kinds of that is the second. But then there's rational fear, where people of God need to assume. And the rational fear says, in spite of the fact that I see fear, in spite of the fact that you try to make me be fearful, in spite of the fact that you try to project fear on me, okay, I know that the fear that I have is one that is premised and based on the foundation that I will not be afraid. So sometimes we know, Rofty, that if we march our Rosso, okay, and demonstrate, we might be fearful to be arrested from the police, but we will go nonetheless. Okay? We know that if we speak out on the radio, we might be persecuted, but we will go nonetheless. We have that fear. It is rational, but we will decide, in spite of that projection of fear, in spite of that overbearing burden of fear, we will face it. That's rational fear. People who are God's children have rational fear. And I always put it, when we look at the prophets, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Moses, Hosea, Amos, all of these prophets, Jesus, Paul, Peter, right? That is why sometimes I ask myself, if we say that we are a nation full of godly reverent fear, Dominicans go to church every Sunday, we have Catholic, we have Methodist, we have Anglican, we have Pentecostal, we have Baptist, we have Seventh-day Adventists, we have Church of God, we have Church of God Seventh-day Adventists, and we have Seventh-day Adventists, Church of God, we have First Baptist and Second Baptist and Third Baptist and Baptist on the Hill. We have all kind of, we have Rastafarians, we have Jehovah's Witness. And yet, there's so many people who go to church on a Sunday morning are filled with primal and irrational fear.
So there's right? so there's no limitation as to churchgoers.
Right. Well, yes, there is limitation instead, because anybody who goes to church will be unlimited in their fear. They will not be afraid of anybody. We have pastors and priests who are supposed to be ministers of the word of God, full of irrational fear. They're afraid to speak out. They're afraid to stand up against lies, against injustice, against wrong, against what they're seeing that is not good before their very eyes. Okay? And so these are the three types of fear that will break or scare us or send us into an escape room. Okay? And so these three types of fear. It's that lofty. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. But what does God tell us about fear? God tells us, do not be afraid. Throughout Scripture, you know, we hear over and over, do not be afraid. Okay, because if we trust in God, we will not be afraid. What does Scripture tell us? Do not be afraid of those who can kill the body but cannot kill the soul. Huh? And that's a very encouraging word.
That's Mark 10:28. That's one of my pivotal scriptures there.
A lot of people are afraid of those who can kill the body, but they're not afraid of the one who can kill the soul. So they will obey the one who can kill the body. So, and what does that mean? They will obey people who can deny them their jobs. They will obey people who can harass them politically and legally. They will obey people who will deny them a loan in a bank. They will obey people who will deny their children scholarships. They will obey people who will deny them promotion and appointment. They will obey people who can kill the body. In other words, they will obey people who can arrest them, okay? But they will disobey the one who can kill the soul. In obeying the one who can kill the body, what they do, right? They disobey the one. So they will lie for the one who can kill the body. They will cheat for the one who can kill the body. They will steal for the one who can kill the body. They'll harass their brothers and sisters for the one who can kill the body. Meanwhile, losing their soul. Can you imagine that? That's why I say it's very ominous. That's the word I use from the beginning. It's very ominous that people are obeying the one who can kill the body and doing things, offending the one who can kill us. So they don't mind stealing, they don't mind cheating, they don't mind being corrupt, they don't mind lying, they don't mind hating their brother, they don't mind threatening their neighbor, they don't mind undermining their neighbor, they don't mind denying their neighbor's child a scholarship, they don't mind being on a financial board in some banking institution and denying somebody a loan for political reasons. They don't mind that. They don't mind denying people's wives and children jobs and promotion. They don't mind that. It's okay, right? As long as they can do that in the name of the one who can kill the body. Meanwhile, they are damaging their soul. They are damaging their soul in the eyes of God. So that's why he said, do not be afraid of those who can kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. And that is where we I think we have come to face a lot of what we call irrational fear in Dominica. And people are living irrational fear. We have allowed ourselves to be overcome by all sorts of societal situations that debilitate us. And more, Lofty, as you speak to Dominicans, people are living in fear. Fear controls, Fear invokes flight. Fear invokes flight. And when you look at it, the number of Dominicans who are living Dominica and running away. Fear invokes flight. When you look at it, the number of Dominicans who are apathetic about being involved in politics. Fear invokes flight. And when you look at it, the amount of people who are afraid to talk to certain people because of political reasons, And so that is how fear controls. One of the first ways that fear controls people is by allowing them to flee and to not know their way back. Because that is why sometimes I'm afraid. I mean, Dominicans have flee so far that I wonder if they will find their way back. That's one of the things I'm very fearful of. Will our people in Dominica be able to find their way back? Because they have been so consumed by fear that they have flown, that they have flee from confronting the fear and allowing them to be in a comfort zone whereby they don't offend anybody, whereby they are afraid to speak, whereby, as you said, they are afraid to be seen with certain people. They are afraid to go and talk to certain people. So they exist in that comfort zone. And the question is, how are they going to find their way back? Fear, and then what does that do? After flight, it makes you manipulative. It makes you manipulative. And this is one of the other dangers of fear, right? Because fear, and what does being that is where the psychological oppression of fear is very dangerous. Okay, Fidel Castro, and what is his name, Nelson Mandela, they were fearful in their struggles. Okay, and they had to flee to the mountains, had to flee away from their oppressors, but they never made themselves comfortable. And so that is why they were able to be psychologically strong. They were able to be mentally strong. And there are some people who fear will break. Okay? There are some people who fear will overcome and crush because fear has allowed them to flee so much that it becomes manipulative. And then what happens as a result of that? You have serious health consequences. Physical health. Fear can bring physical health. Fear can bring you to feel fatigued, can raise your pressure levels, can cause you to have diabetes. Nurse Felix is there. I'm sure she can know that. That is why maybe sometimes I wonder, why are so many Dominicans suffering from cancer? Fear is one of the root causes of cancer because fear causes stress. Okay? And sometimes that is something people have to be. Sometimes it may not be anything in the environment, but the fact that the chemical reactions of fear in people's body has precipitated a magnitude of health problems. And because fear weakens the immune system, Lofty. And anybody who has done psychology, okay, and psychosocial clinical studies will tell you fear weakens the immune system and can cause cardiovascular damage. It can cause gastrointestinal problems and irritable bowel syndrome and decreased fertility. Fear can do those things. These are the dangers of fear. And we are allowing ourselves to be overridden by fear, to be overpowered by fear, to be succumbed by fear. And I say to myself every day, when are our psychologists and our medical doctors going to have a marriage of their knowledge to heighten people to the fact that the level of fear that people are living under is perhaps what is causing all these sudden deaths in Dominica, all the rising cancer, in cardiovascular damage, in gastrointestinal problems, in ulcers, in irritable bowel syndrome, and decreased fertility. And we have to be very careful of that. That's some of the dangers of fear. Fear can also affect our lives from a very damaging perspective. Fear can cause people to have mental problems, okay? As well as anxiety disorders. And anxiety is something that many people are going, you have to realize how Dominicans are on the edge, how people are sort of nervous about almost everything, that people are so quick to make noise with each other and fight with each other and argue with each other over every little thing. That's because of anxiety. And where is that anxiety coming from? Is the anxiety coming out of fear? And I have no doubt that it is, because that is one ominous reality that is pervasive over all Dominicans, right? That you have maybe public servants or administrators in the public service who have to be so overpowered by fear of the powers that be that they pass it on to subordinate public officers and cause them to be anxious about coming to work and doing their job. Huh? Fear is largely associated to depression and psychosis and suicide and poor physical health, as I said earlier. And in some situations, fear can lead to terror. And that is the rough equivalent. And when I look sometimes at the policemen, how they attack people, how they approach people, how they are so quick. I mean, when you walk around Roseau sometimes, you would swear Dominica is in a war zone. A set of policemen in camouflage and army fatigue and combat fatigue, like we're living in Vietnam or we're living in Afghanistan. You're walking around Roseau doing your daily business and you have a set of people in green and black, like we had war. Okay, that is causing, and so the fear there is bringing a certain level of extreme degree of fear that leads to terror and trepidation and dread, what you call the dreaded syndrome, and that leads people to be timid and trembling and hesitating, and that's why many people in Dominica will not go to a political meeting, they'll not go to a public discussion. Public servants will not go to PSU because that level of fear has led to a certain level of terror that leads to an atmosphere of trepidation. And because there has so much existing in an atmosphere of trepidation, okay, the implications are people become timid, afraid, people tremble, and people hesitate. No, there is, and so that is what happens. No, there is a word for it in psychology that transition from fear out of terror can lead to something called metastasiophobia. Now, what is metastasiophobia, right? What that begins to do, it causes people to have self-doubt, lack of self-esteem, panic attacks, social anxiety, depression, and the inability to adapt to new situations. Rocky, don't you see that in Dominica?
Very much,
don't you
very
see
much
the
so.
number of people who doubt themselves that they can do anything?
Yep.
Right? Don't you see the number of people who walk around without any self-esteem and they have panic attacks and there's a lot of social anxiety? People are just afraid to mix and mingle and depression. That is a dangerous thing that we are under, you know? We take that kind of temporal fear for granted, and of course it all comes from the atmosphere we have created. Yeah. Why? You get fear, and you will have leaders who project fear.
True.
And the number one cause for leaders who project fear is insecurity. So when a leader is insecure, you have that backtracking effect whereby the fear of the insecurity leads them to develop a lack of ability to govern and to manage. And so they use fear-based tactics to maintain their position and authority and prevent others from questioning their decisions or challenging their leadership. So the more fearful a leader is, the more insecure a leader becomes. And that is where sometimes you will see that some leaders go mad. They become dictators. Because the more they grow insecure, right, the more they develop from their peers and within themselves an inability to maintain their position from a solid, confident perspective. And what that does in turn is that their authority becomes so dominant that they prevent others from questioning their decisions or challenging their leadership. How dare you challenge them? And so we need to understand that what we're discussing tonight, Lofty, we're talking about fear, but sometimes, psychological illnesses and psychological setbacks are more grievous, are more hurtful than physical illnesses. You understand what I'm telling you? And so all these things lead to another kind of fear, and which is where Dominicans are at now. And it causes a certain form of neophobia. And neophobia is the fear of anything new or unfamiliar. So that has brought Dominicans into a situation now where they are comfortable with, where they don't want to try anything new. They are in situations where they know they are fearful, where they know this fear is debilitating them, but they don't want to try. They will not try another political party because they are fearful. That is the level of fear that Dominica, it comes from the Greek word neo and phobium. And that these two words, when you link them to, is fear of the unfamiliar. So they are so comfortable. That's what they know. That's what they see. That's what they live. And in spite of the fact that they are dominated by fear and they are overwhelmed with that ominous reality of fear, they will stay where they are. And they will not try anything new to break loose of that fear. That is a very dangerous place to be. That's a very, very dangerous place to be.
And trust me, Simeon, I can tell you, I'm on the ground and we are right there, exactly where you end in terms of that fear. We are right there. Brother Joseph, I want to piggyback on just 2 points of all the many points that you raised earlier. And I want to thank the many folks who are really in tune and enjoying the discussion so far. I will open up the avenue for you to call in or even, send a message, whatever it is, in just a while. I'll give you those numbers in a while. Simeon, 2 points that you raised. One, the level of anxiety in the country today is that it is really, really alarming.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that I can pinpoint now why there is this level of fear in the country is that some persons, they really don't know where their next meal is coming from.
Exactly. And so
they don't know where that next paycheck is coming from. They don't. So at the end of the day, and even if some of these people are working, there is this edgy feeling in the economy that you don't know when you will get up one morning and your supervisor, boss, whoever it is, will tell you, Mr. Joseph, sorry, but we have to close down shop today because whatever reason they may give.
Yeah.
And that, to me, I can cut it with a knife. And so some of these persons, they are so edgy because of that situation that exists in the country, that level of doubt, that level of not knowing, not being secure enough so that they can plan, they can organize their life around their employment, whatever it is. And so that is why you find now that level of violence sometimes. Sometimes you just talk to somebody, hi, hello, and they watch you like as if, well, if Cortez could kill, as they say, You would have dropped.
Well, of course. Well, as I said,
a simple mistake sometimes. You step on somebody's toe by mistake and they're ready to chop off that foot of yours.
Yeah.
Well, a simple error sometimes can cause big fracas because of that level of fear that is permeating among the citizens of this country. Well, and it is a fearful thing.
As I said, Lofty, these are some of the debilitating effects of fear. That's how fear affects people's lives. It leads to that psychosis of the unknown. Let me tell you something there. You hit the nail on the head, and a lot of Dominicans are operating, and that's why people will tell you sometimes you're brave, or you this or you that, because people are at a juncture in their lives now where they are even afraid to be themselves. They're even afraid to think. They're afraid to speak. They're afraid to choose. They're afraid to associate. No. And then because of that, that is what leads to that level of anxiety. So when people react that way, it has nothing to do with them reacting to you, but everything telling about themselves. The level of anxiety and psychosis in their life is so strong that it's easy for them to lash out. That they have reached such low rock bottom in their confidence and their self-esteem that they don't know how to cope with the semblance of anything that they see as perhaps attacking them. And you're quite right there. You're quite right there. You know, they're quite right there. Matt, I'm Lofty. I am somebody, people can say the worst about me and I don't care. People can do the worst to me and I don't care. Because no one, I do not see anybody yet except my God who can undermine my self-confidence. Okay? And that is why it's so troubling to me for so many Christians in Dominica today. That is why it is so troubling. So Europe was transformed by the march of Christians. When you hear about these social democrats in Italy, in Germany, in Hungary, in Austria, in France, these political parties arose out of the Christian people of Europe who decided that they were going to challenge the status quo. That's how they came about. And so they were not intimidated. Their faith told them. And in spite of the fact that they were living in deplorable conditions in Europe in the 1920s and 30s, they were going, and that's how trade unions began to be formed. Trade unionism came from the Catholic Church, as a matter of fact, Rerum Novarum of Pope Leo the Great. Okay? And people were able to step into the world and say, the world, we have to confront the world. The world cannot project fear on us. That when the world is going one way, the church must go the other way, and we must confront the world and let the world know that we are not fearful of the world because we do not fear man. And that is why today I am so alarmed by so many Christians who are so comfortable living in fear. They defy their Christianity. A Christian is not supposed to be fearful. A Christian is not supposed to be afraid. A Christian is not supposed to fear man. A Christian is not supposed to fear flesh and blood. A Christian is supposed to confront flesh and blood in Jesus' name by the power of the Spirit residing in them, and know that they have been endowed by God with the power of his breath and spirit to confront the world and the things that are of the world that are not of God. But it's very interesting to know that so many Christians in Dominica today are choosing the side of the world. And one of the fundamental things, Lofty, that I want to give a subtle, strong warning to, is that fear is bad for a leader. Fear in the long-term effects, any leader who operates on fear-based leadership is going to have long-term damaging effects on that person. Especially if that fear is being used for short-term benefits. Because that person will inherently become a negative motivator. Will do not know anything else but to have power over others, and can lead to a culture of failure. This is why you see it in many Dominicans today. A good leader is not fearful and encourages creativity.
True.
So when you as a leader um, um, projects that level of fear, you grow in. The more fear you project, the more insecure you become. The more suspicious you become of people. The more insecure you think of others around you. The more you are able to and it leads to a greater undermining of authority, right? And the more it leads to undermining of authority, the more it leads to maintaining absolute control by maintaining order. And that's why you have so many policemen on the street. And insecurity is leading to a fear of undermining of authority. Anybody who's comfortable with differences of opinion and opposition sleeps well at night, is able to say, let people oppose, let people demonstrate, let people fight for their rights. But it is not good on any leader, because it means therefore that leader maybe doesn't sleep at night. That maybe leader maybe cannot eat properly. That leader maybe, if you have to lose that road, will always be suspicious of everybody around you. You'll be very uncomfortable with even your next of kin. And
True.
don't even trust your best of friends, because you will think, no, everybody's against you. And the more you think everybody's against you, the more you will think people will undermine your authority. And when you reach a stage like that, you lose, all you will want to do is maintain absolute control and maintain order, while you lose your strength of leadership.
Yeah.
That's a sad state for any person to be in. And that's why I tell people, once you reach that stage as a leader, you have to go. You have to tell yourself, it's not good for me psychologically, it's not good for me emotionally, because that is when you are on the cusp of doing mad things to remain as leader.
And so, in a nutshell, Simeon, am I right? Would I be right to say that whoever exudes that kind of leadership, they are on a path of self-destruction?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And when you realize you're on a path of self-destruction, two things can happen. You will destroy others more, or you will destroy yourself eventually.
Yeah.
That's about. And you will destroy others more, so much so that you become an Idi Amin, you become a Hitler, you become a thing, because you will begin to be suspect of everybody around you, and you will become isolated, you will become unloved, you will become somebody whom people distrust more than they should. And so once you see yourself reaching that level of psychological precipitation, you need to step aside and say, for my own health, for my own well-being, for my own sanity, let me go into the unknown and preserve my legacy.
Wow. Folks, we are, I can tell you, we are just like 1 hour into the program, and I can feel, I sense we have just started the conversation. Matter of fact, the next aspect to that conversation, in terms of hope or having something to look forward to, we haven't even touched that aspect as yet. But it is 10 minutes past 7 o'clock, so we know in any conversation, in any scenario, we normally like to have you take a little break, just stretch your legs, as it were. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to sort of open up the line, open up the avenue. The numbers are 245-2396 or 615-9470. Those of you who want to contribute to the conversation by calling into the program, this is your time. We're going to continue, but we are just giving you that breathing space, as it were. Those of you who want to contribute. We will get to some of the text messages in just a while. And so we appreciate you guys being here with us on this Saturday night, the 6th of December, 2024, indeed. Yes, Simeon, you were on a path there. I think you may want to continue.
Well, I mean, as I said, I think one of the things we have to keep in mind, I think we need to summarize, is that fear is not unhealthy, but there is unhealthy fear. Okay, if spiritual fear is very healthy, it's very productive, it's very progressive, it's very creative. Spiritual fear is what brings out the best in you and people. But one must not have temporal fear. Having temporal fear is very ominous. It's very precipitative for failure. It's very negative and it's not good. And we need to be able to assess as Dominicans who say that we are a country full of godly reverent fear, whether we are really full of godly reverent fear. Okay. Fundamentally, there are core fears: death, abandonment, failure, and that comes in many forms. Death is not only physical. Abandonment is only physical. Failure is not only physical. There are many kinds of death that people go through. That people go through. Death of who they are, death of their identity, death of their own independence, death of their own thinking, death of their spirit. Indeed. You know, the worst thing is to be dead in spirit. And that is where you know you are at a crisis in life. When you are dead in spirit, it means you don't have the motivation to live. You don't have the motivation to be your best self. You don't have the motivation to be creative. You don't have the motivation to be for the other. You don't have the motivation to be a significant person in life. You might as well die physically. Because once you reach that stage of spiritual death, whereby you no longer have that watch cup, which I mentioned early on, to know your place in life, life ceases to exist. And for anybody to allow fear to so overpower them that they cannot draw into their own wash in life, to mean their place in life, means that they need to seriously reflect on what is that fear that is preventing them from doing that and get rid of it.
Sure, indeed. All right, let's take a musical break now, Brother Simeon. We'll come back to you in just a bit. Let's do this here from Brother.
Because let's say before you take the break, Lokian, I want to say further that when you allow that fear to hold people back from pursuing their dreams, from taking risks, from trying new things, living in fear can lead to a life of regret, okay? Can lead to a life of missed opportunities and limited experiences in life. And it can prevent individuals from reaching their full potential and achieving their goals. Too many Dominicans today are not achieving their potential, reaching their full potential and achieving their goals. Too many of our young men are not achieving their full potential and achieving their goals. Too many people who are talented, resourceful, with wonderful abilities are just latent. And what will that happen? There are young men in Dominica today who graduated from high school at 18 years and are now 30, 35 and have never had employment, have never had a job, do not know what it is to get up in the morning and go to work. There are people today who are just existing.
True.
Because fear has caused them to not maximize their potential, and so therefore they can't achieve their goals. And so they are what you call living deads, walking corpses. And you see a lot of that, Lofty, in Dominica today.
Yeah.
You see a lot of that in Dominica today.
Very well said indeed. All right, Dominicans, a little musical break just to let you stretch your legs, huh? Very, very interesting conversation thus far with the brother Simeon Joseph.
To the rivers, lay down your burden, walk away and sing in a new song, sing a brand new song. Come to Mount Zion, just lay down your burden.
Brother Nasir Fontaine singing a song entitled New Song.
Yeah. worthy.
And yes, it's a brand new year, January 2024.
Higher than the one before. And I know the road to trod is rough and rugged. Still I know, Lion of the Judah is the one solution. Come down to the riverside and lay down your burdens. Walk away and singing a new song. Sing a brand new song. Come to Mount Zion, you hear the heaven, and lay down your burdens. Cause you've been burdened for much too long.
My friend Mali Austria, good evening to you, my dear. Mali's putting me a note that her birthday is up soon, huh? Happy advanced birthday greetings to you, Mali Austria, when that time comes around, huh? To the many of you glued in at this time, thank you very much for your eyes and ears each and every time.
Burning stuff, the road is steep, and there's no rest for weary.
A very much straight shooter.
Another stumbling block,
The man, brother Simeon Joseph, is here.
and I know that you've been through so much.
Folks, just in case you want to call us here, the numbers there are 245-2396 or 615-9470.
Come down to
A number of comments on the live feed so far. Again, the numbers to get your voice into the conversation, they are 245-2396 or 615-9470.
come to Mount Zion, lay down your burdens. Cause you've been burdened for much too long. Much too long.
Yes, Dominicans, some of you have been burdened for much, much too long.
Down your burdens.
And so, yes, the man Simeon Joseph is helping you to lay down those burdens, as Nasio is saying in his song. Brand new year, brand new conversation. Yes, in spite of, we have to look up. It's Dana Philbert Peterson saying, good choice of music indeed. Thank you. Yes, Brother Joseph, we're back. And so we have been speaking about fear.
Yeah.
And everything and anything that goes with that kind of fear. I'm hearing a reverb. I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yes. So what now, Simeon, in terms of the antidote or the medication, the other side of fear that can help us rectify that situation that a lot of Dominicans are going through?
Okay, a very good question, Lofty. Well, the opposite of fear is hope, eh? And the ironical thing is that when there is abject fear, it's very difficult to have a lot of hope. What has to happen is a turning around of the spirit of Dominicans, okay? A reorientation and a redirection of fear. And I want to go back to the very beginning. Dominicans are going to have to decide whether they want to live under spiritual fear or temporal fear. To leave temporal fear behind, okay, and to gravitate towards spiritual fear. And that is where hope begins. That is where hope begins. You cannot be existing in temporal fear, okay, and have hope, because you're already in a debilitating situation. You have to be able to gravitate. You have to be able to turn your back. As I say, forget everything and rise. You can face everything and run, which is what Dominicans have been doing. Now they need to pivot into face everything and rise, no matter what you are going through, no matter what are the fearful, death rendering, abandoning, failure situations that you go through. You have to be able to pivot to facing everything and rise. And that is where hope comes in. Hope is driven by an anticipation of not being afraid. If you understand what I'm saying, you cannot be hopeful and afraid. You'll be compromising your faith. You'll be still living in a shady area of doubt. In order for you to face everything and rise, you have to recognize, okay, that yes, there is all this predominance of fearful situations that I encounter daily. Political persecution, economic difficulties, social oppression, whatever you want to call it, religious pluralism and acrimony, because that's the stage we are at in Dominica now. Sadly, religious communities who should be giving people hope, should be a beacon of hope, now exist in a milieu of pluralism and acrimony, religious acrimony, where they are not speaking the same language that Jesus came to give in Luke and in Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah. The Spirit of the Lord has been given to me. He has anointed me. He has sent me to bring the good news to the poor, to preach liberty to captives, to open the eyes of the blind, to set the captive free. That is the essential message and the commission of Savior whom we profess to serve, whom we tell people go to church every Sunday and worship. Huh? What would Christianity be like if Jesus had not confronted the Sadducees and the Pharisees and the Jewish authority and the Roman authorities? What would Christianity be like? There would be no Christianity. There would be no going to the cross, which is significant. It's not just a piece of wood. The cross is actually a way of life. Okay? The cross is actually a life, because if we say in Christians, we have to realize that there are two juxtapositions to salvation, which is we are militant and we are triumphant. You cannot be triumphant if you're not militant. That's what Jesus came to do. Jesus came to show us the way to heaven by being militant, by walking the walk and talking the talk, and marching in the places that did not welcome him, who did not recognize him, who brought him over the cliff to be overthrown, into the desert, being confronted daily by the authorities and the legal people, and even of those of his own, being abandoned, as so many of us have to go through, abandoned and even denied. That is the militancy that he faced through, so that he could be triumphant. If we are Christians, it's supposed to be our same modus operandi and our philosophy of life. That as we are going through life, we cannot let fear overcome us. We need to understand that in order for us to be triumphant in life, we have to go through the same Damascus experience that Jesus went through, the same Jerusalem mountaintop that he went through, the same Garden of Mount of Olives, of shedding tears that he went through, facing opposition of being abandoned, being left alone, and knowing that our hope is in the triumphant celebration of our militancy as we march, casting aside all the fear that is there to oppress us. Because that's what fear does. Fear is a form of oppression. But our religion today has told us to be compliant, not to complain, don't challenge, behave yourself, stay quiet. What again they tell us? Recognize the good. And even if the bad is 20 times or 200 times more than the good, recognize the good and use the good to cover up the bad. That's not hope. That's not hope. Because what we are doing is marching further and further into an abyss of darkness where we will not be able to come out of. We have to be able to assume the role of taking up the challenges, the death environment. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff. People of hope are supposed to have a rod and a staff, two significant elements of people who are marching as hope. The rod to point you and the staff on which to stand the ground And then you're supposed to be able to have all the elements of truth and righteousness and love as your breastplate and your helmet. And with those things, that is where your hope comes from. That is where your groundedness comes from. And match against all the, because you see, if we are not people of faith, we cannot have hope. Hope and faith are intertwined. And of course, love is the link. Faith, hope, and love abide. And the greatest of this is love. Yes, the greatest of this love is not in mamsy, pamsy, hugging up, kissing. That's no. The love is the link of the chain between faith and hope. Because we have to have faith, and love is what links it together. Because if you have love in your heart, you will allow the love in your heart to let your faith be grounded and your hope be one that inspires you. And so that is why we're not supposed to be fighting each other. You cannot have faith and hope and you're against your brother. You cannot have faith and hope and you betraying your brother. You cannot have faith and hope and you are torn to pieces. And unfortunately, that is why our religious communities, our Christian communities in Dominica today are betraying the Christian objective, are betraying the Christian mission, because they are supposed to be that symbol of love that allows people to link their faith with their hope and understand that their role is for the common good, for the oppressed, for the downtrodden, for the prisoner, for the widow, and the orphan, and to stand up against the structures that are preventing people from opening their eyes, to stand up against the structures that refuse to bring healing to people, to stand up against the structures that put people in prison. That's what they're supposed to do. That's their role and their function. That's their mission. That's where hope comes from. The glimmer of hope comes when people realize that to overcome fear, I can't just say I need hope. I need the faith that comes from realizing I deserve more. Dominica deserves more. Dominica deserves better. Dominica deserves more than it's getting now. Dominica, we as the people of Dominica, we are entitled by God to have more than we are getting now. We are entitled to more. We deserve better. And so our fear is causing us to not realize the better we deserve. And that's where our hope should come from. When we realize the resources that Dominica has and the potential that Dominica has. Dominica is a land of untapped, limitless resources. Untapped, limitless resources. I still believe we're heaven on earth. Right? Because when you look at Dominica today and you look at what Dominica can become, just look at our rivers. We can feed the world with water. We can feed the Caribbean with water. We're importing water from Antigua and Trinidad that don't even have a waterfall. You know, isn't that shameful? Isn't that shameful? We can hardly get local produce in the market. Our young people are on the streets, so cannot find employment. We have a lot of talented, resourceful Dominicans. Look at our horticulture and our agriculture and our aquaculture. We haven't explored those things. Fear, we have been so dominated by fear that we're allowing people to tell us that we cannot do anything for ourselves, that everything has to be done by some foreigner.
Simeon,
that we cannot be anything without somebody does it for us.
May I interject the one? May I interject the 1 minute, Simeon? We have someone who has been holding on the line for a little while. Let's just see if we can entertain that caller on the line. Caller, yes, good evening to you.
Good evening to you, Lofty. Good evening to your listeners. Good evening to my good friend Simeon, who I haven't spoken to in donkey's years. Good evening. Happy New Year to you guys.
Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you loud and clear.
You're hearing me, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, Lofty, there's a lot I want to say, but I'll make it short. First of all, I'm really happy that Simeon is challenging the Christian community tonight to act, because I've said many times before, speaking with Pastor Rodney and so on, that, you know, if you profess to be a Christian, you are God's representative, Christ's representative on the earth. And so you must represent his principles. And so when you are when you profess to be a Christian, you cannot be seeing good institutions around you being torn down and destroyed in the interest of one organization or one person or one political party, and remain totally and absolutely quiet, saying absolutely nothing. You have to speak out more. And so I'd like to call on the members of the Christian community in particular, challenge them to call into radio programs, to listen, to contribute, call in and challenge, whether it's people that they support or people that they do not support. I'd also like to call on those who are listening tonight to your program. You can call Lofty on his number using WhatsApp, whether you're overseas or local, so that you can contribute as well, because we need to hear more voices than the voices that we hear now. And finally, I will say that when you are an alcoholic, in order for you to remove yourself from that situation where you are controlled by the alcohol, you first must admit that you are a slave to that alcohol. And so with our situation in Dominica, we have to analyze for ourselves individually whether or not the last 20 years have brought us to a better place or a worse place. And once we determine whether we feel that we're in a better or worse place, if we are in a worse place, we then have a responsibility to find a way to remove that which keeps us in that worse place in order for us to get to a better place. And if we believe that we can remain silent and say nothing and do nothing, it will only get worse than it is today, as it has gotten worse over the years, over the past few years. And lastly, many of our people are afraid to speak because we're now in an economic environment where they feel that if they have a small job, as the NEP, for example, paying meager wages of $500 a month that you can hardly survive on, they feel that if they speak out and they lose that, they are in an economic situation where they will not be able to even generate a job of their own. And so that is what is causing the fear, the economic environment within which our people live today. And we have to ask ourselves, why is it that we are in this predicament and what causes it? And once we identify the cause, we must then find a way to change that. I'll leave it there because I sometimes speak too much. So I will end there, my brother. You have a great night and I'm listening.
All right, a great night to you as well, caller. Thank you for chiming in here and your very, very salient points indeed. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you indeed. Yes, Simeon, as we continue on here, based on what the caller, alluded to. Any thoughts?
Well, we have to be a people of hope. I want to continue, Lofty, with appraising the possibilities of Dominica. One of my, sad observations is that, you compare Dominica to the Caribbean countries and you see Dominica has so much more to offer. And
Yes.
the Caribbean countries are so much more further than us. And so it's time for Dominicans to be able to tap in the potential that they are. Again, I look at our natural resources, as I've said, there's so much can be done for the improvement of Dominica in terms of export of our goods and services, in terms of development of our tourism product, in terms of the expansion of our cultural base and cultural product, in terms of Dominica being recognized. Why is it that 45 years after independence, people still don't know the difference between the Dominican Republic and Dominica? So that we can find our unique and specific space in the wider world. You know what I mean? And why is it that you look at Jamaica, and in almost every city in the world, Jamaica is represented in one way, form, or fashion, and Trinidad behind, and Barbados and St. Lucia is coming up, and people still ask you, where is Dominica? Where is Dominica? What are we doing? What are we doing? Instead, we are concentrating on promoting people rather than who we are as a nation. Okay? When we look at our regression in medical health, I mean, I lived in Goodwill as a child growing up. Okay? And I remember the good old, I lived opposite at the back of Dr. Sorrento and opposite Dr. Watty and Dr. McIntyre. Okay? And I knew of this outstanding medical practitioners and doctors in Dominica who were, and not to a stone throw from Dr. Roy, okay, who were such beacons and luminaries in the medical field, okay, and to know that we have had an increase in so many medical doctors in Dominica, yet our healthcare is declining, and then we had the days of so many flourishing industries in Dominica, Bello, DCP, and all these companies that if we could have done it then, we need to return to doing it again, because these were industries that were germane and developed from the exploitation of our raw products. We didn't have to import anything for any manufacturing. It means, therefore, if we could have done it 20, 30 years ago, we can do it again. We need to come back to that. We need to remove that latent doubt that we have over our heads, okay? And take ownership of our future. Take ownership of Dominica, right? Take the bull by the horn and say the development and the advancements and the progress of Dominica should be rested and vested in the hands of the citizens of Dominica, the young people who are our future, the brightest and best of our educated minds, the most resourceful of our people, the best of our human resource, and move this country forward. Instead, more and more we are moving back into we can't. Who says we can? It is so amazing that people are saying today that almost everything in Dominica has to be now done for us by a foreigner. I mean, this is heartbreaking to me. I don't know if it is to other people. Okay, it's heartbreaking to me. And even when you look at some of our structures of governance, before we used to hear of Owen Phillip and Mr. Pear being our police commissioners, people who would go to the region and strengthen the police forces of other countries. Today, our police force is not even a shining beacon on a hill for the rest of the Caribbean. You know, that the best of our educators would have proliferated the Caribbean and heading so many regional organizations and even beyond. We had Dr. Benjamin, who was heading IFAD in Rome. We had who was at one point in CARICOM. We had people heading international organizations. Today we don't have that. Today we don't have that. Dominicans were all over the world, you know, making their mark on behalf of a small country, a dot in the Caribbean Sea. Where are Dominicans today? What are they doing? Who are the Dominicans out there that have been a beacon of light and a shining example for Dominicans to follow? Where we had, okay, right now we have Kevin Hodge and what is the other cricketer? Gosh, I forgot his name. My good friend. Or what does his name slip me?
Mr. Athanas.
Athanas. Yes, we have that now, but we remember the days of Grayson Schillingford and Irvin Schillingford and all these people, you know? And so the thing about it is that now, where is our Olympic swimming pool? Where is our athletic track? Where is our Olympic size stadium? Where are the things that are going to help our young people to develop their talent and to advance into the wider world? You know, there's a lot of hope. But we are residing in a realm of doubt and disbelief and lack of self-appraisal, okay? And without recognizing that, and because we are being told by the powers that be that we cannot optimize who we are. So we are, again, to what I said earlier, we are now, maybe we will regret it. Because we are missing the opportunities and the experiences that are going to put us onto a platform where we can pursue our dreams as a people, where we need to take the necessary risks as a country to maximize our full potential and to achieve our goals. And so we see how fear there is undermining all of that. And I'd just like to end tonight to say that Dominica can be a better place, Lofty. Dominicans can be a better people. we can be the shining beacon on the hill. We can be the luminary for other, because there is no doubt about it that Dominicans can do it. We have done it in the past. We just have to stick, how you call it, shed that skin of domination and purge ourselves of that fear that we are existing in, and put on a new cloak of determination and forthrightness and how creativity and energy and industriousness and assume the role and the responsibility of Dominicans of recognizing that we are people full of godly reverent fear. Okay? And what does the national anthem say? Strong and healthy, and use our strength and our health where we can achieve the destination of our forefathers, where we become all for each and each for all. And unfortunately, we are no longer all for each and each for all, because we have allowed the temporal fear, not the reverent fear, the temporal fear to dominate us. So we don't recognize our rivers and our valleys and our hills and our mountains. We don't recognize that, and we have become so divided as a people that we are now tearing each other apart and fighting each other and being indifferent to each other. And some people, unfortunately, are being denied the opportunity to give their fair share of the pie, or to contribute to the making of the pie that eventually will be baked so that all Dominicans can participate in.
Yes, indeed. Simeon, one comment out of the many comments really stands out here, and it would be a very interesting note for us to end here this evening.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Jo says here, we have to be united like back in my grandmother days. Simeon, we have already been hearing about the talk of unity, the talk of coming together, the talk of, that amalgam, as it were, in order to face our fears, as you said in Dominica. What would you want to say in that regard about that whole talk of unity?
Well, of course, we have to dispense from our suspicion and distrust of each other. There's too much suspicion and there's too much distrust of each other. And we have to be more forgiving. We have to be more people who can overlook whatever differences that exist among those of us who call for unity. Unfortunately, there are many people in Dominica who call for unity. They distrust each other. They are suspicious of each other. They are working to undermine each other. And so that shakes the foundation of their very efforts at unity. So those who call for unity must first recognize that they need to be genuine and authentic in their call for unity, and they have to learn to develop a certain level of trust, a lack of fear of each other, a greater appreciation for what each other can bring to the table, and a greater appraisal of the differences of people, and recognize that no solution for Dominica rests in the hands of one set of people or one man. Nobody can do it alone. And that is where the unity, the impetus for unity must be. The impetus for unity must be that we have to move away from this mindset that the solutions rest in one man or in one group of people. Dominica belongs to all of us. And so if we're talking about unity, what we need to do, as I said before, is to first of all appraise and value the giftedness and the gifts and the goodness of all those who are calling for unity. That we need to be forgiving of the errors and the wrongs we are too quick to put down and to blame. Forgive the errors of each other. And while we do that, we need to overcome the fears and the suspicions that we have of each other, and recognize that individuals are different. People come from different perspectives, different philosophical mindsets, different practical solutions, okay? Different principles, as a matter of fact. And once we recognize that, we use those differences as an eclectic form of embracing the best in everybody and moving forward for our unity. I'm hearing too much fragmentation by people who seek to unify. The more people try to go their different ways to solve Dominica's problems, the more we're going to remain fragmented. And those who are in the position of instilling fear of people, unfortunately, will remain there for a very long time. And that would be the death and destruction of Dominica, because it means, therefore, that as far as Dominica is realizing its potential and maximizing the achievements of its goals, we're not going to get there. We're not going to get there. And it is time mature thinking, grown people understand that while they may have autonomy of action and judgment, separation in autonomy doesn't work. We have to appreciate the autonomous mindsets and behaviors of people, appraise them for what they are, and see how we can have bridge those the efforts that people can come together with for the betterment of Dominica. We have been divided too long as a people. We have been cast against each other for too long. We tend to revel too much in the mistakes and the wrongs of each other. We tend to be too trying to find the dark sides of people without trying to find what is the brightness that is in each and every person that we can use. We're doing that for too long now. We have allowed the powers that be to separate us and to divide us and to cast us against each other. We need to reject that ominous spirit of division, divide and rule, and conquer and dominate that is in Dominica today, and reject it at all costs. Say the time has come for this to go and for that to come to an end, and reach out to other people, reach out to each other, reach out to all those who know, well, okay, we need to bring an end to this, and for once and for all, recognize that it can only happen in not in a heterogeneous way, but in a harmonious way of recognizing that if we bring the best of all those who seek to better Dominica together, we will definitely have a better Dominica.
We've got to unite. We've got to unite. Come on, people. Say we've got to unite. Brother and sister, say we've got to unite. Why can't we unite? Lord, I wanna know now. Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, can't we unite? Lord, why can't we unite? Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, can't we unite? Lord, united we stand, so divided we fall. We must unite, topple these walls, Lord. 400 years, divided too long. We must unite, if we must be strong. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Well.
I see my people suffer.
Brother Simeon Joseph said it in his own words.
I seem to feel the
Nasio Fontaine is telling us the very same thing in song.
to unite. Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, get we unite.
Dominicans, yes, we need to unite.
I get we unite. Black and white. Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, get we unite.
What an opener for 2024. Matthew Sharpless is saying, very inspiring program indeed.
We've got to unite. We've got to unite. Come on, people, say we've got to unite. Get yourself together, say we've got to unite. So why?
Yes, Dominicans, let's get ourselves together, man. We must unite.
Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh.
Whatever confronts us as a people, once we are united, yes, we can defeat whatever stands in our way.
I can't unite.
I know many of you out there want to thank Simeon personally, but you can't. So on your behalf, I say thank you very much, my brother Joseph. Simeon, your final thoughts, my bro, before we bring it to a wrap.
Lovely. I just want to wish all Dominicans all the best for 2024, without a doubt. I want to reach out to Dominicans at home and abroad, all those again who are beginning this year in a certain level of doubt and trepidation. Hold strong, be faithful, be hopeful, strive always to be their best. Whatever little best or good there is in them, let that shine through. Allow Dominica to be foremost on the mind. If you're a Dominican, Dominica must be first for you. Okay, nobody else can be first for you. No man, no woman, no government, no party must be first for you. No political leader, no minister of government, no priest, no pastor. If you are a Dominican, Dominica has to be first for you. And if you recognize Dominica as first for you, you will want to put your energies, your mindset, your spirit into working for the good of Dominica and the best for your brothers and sisters who are Dominican. So Dominicans, move forward. Let's move forward. Let's march forward. Let's be hopeful. Let us bring our resources together and let's help Dominica move forward.
My brother Simeon, trust me, I really, really don't have words to thank you now, but that is what it is in the English language. Thank you very much. On behalf of the multitudes listening and watching, I just want to thank you, my brother, for opening up the year 2024 with such brilliant, inspiring, motivating conversation / discussion indeed.
Thank you, Lofty. My mic was off, so thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Simeon. Pleasant night, my bro.
We've got to unite. We've got to unite. Come on, people. Say we've got to unite. Brother and sister, say we've got to unite. Why can't we unite? Lord, I wanna know now. Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, can't we unite? Lord, why can't we unite? Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, can't we unite? Lord, united we stand, so divided we fall. We must unite, topple these walls, Lord. 400 years, divided too long. We must unite, if we must be strong. Whoa, 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 whoa. Every time I look around, I see my people suffer.
So Dominicans, as I bring this all-important Saturday Night Live with yours truly to a close, I want to thank you very, very much indeed for tuning in this evening from 6 o'clock. It's 3 minutes to the hour of 8 o'clock. And so, yes, all good things come to an end.
Why can't we unite?
Very well spent 2-hour program indeed.
Why can't we unite?
So guess what, folks? Guess what? Tonight's program, yes, you will get an anchor version of it tomorrow on the Civic Vibes program.
We've got to unite. We've got to unite. Come on, people. Say we've got.
And in addition to that,
Say we've got to unite. So why?
to start us off 2024 with that bang that we need, we will be having 3 of our own in the house, 3 spiritual leaders.
Wow.
They will be talking, they'll be praying, they'll be intercessing, they'll be doing whatever tomorrow right here on this sport, Civic Vibes. So you want to be in tune for that and more?
Forcing on fighting.
As Brother Alvin Thomas and yours truly engage our 3 spiritual leaders tomorrow right here on Civic Vibes.
Fighting too long. We must unite.
And after we have engaged them, done and dusted with them, that is, we will be hearing from Simeon, the very same program that you heard tonight.
I see my people suffer.
We'll be giving you a rerun tomorrow.
Look around.
So Dominicans, that is it for me. I gotta go.
Why can't we unite?
Let's continue in that Unism zone for 2024. Brother Nasio, you and your family out there, my brother, thank you for always giving us a song.
Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, yes, unite. Go, 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 make we unite. Go, 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 make we unite. Come on, people, say we've got to unite. Brother and sister, say we've got to unite.
So it's 8 o'clock in Dominica and the rest of the Eastern Caribbean. Dominicans, friends, fans, I wish you a pleasant good evening. Bye-bye. I love you.
Too much sorrow.